I'd like an answer to the question, Judge.
You can't handle the truth!
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to After Hours AM, The Criminal Code, with your hosts, Joel Sturgis, Eric Olsen, and Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM, The Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
So, guys, you know, it's really been a kind of a fever pitch the last few days with everything that's going on in Charlottesville, and we're going to be covering that. At the top of next hour with some people that were actually there, boots on the ground, so to speak, that saw it real time and live. Right, Eric?
Absolutely. We have a journalist who is actually covering, as we speak, a secret, unannounced event because they wish to avoid conflict. But of course, that chance remains that once they get going, it's a march and a vigil for the woman who was killed. And there it is a possibility that things may get ugly once again. But right now they're trying to keep it low-key and try to keep it peaceful. But yes, literally on the ground as we speak. We have two different journalists who are from the area, radio, print, and whatnot. And both have been involved, actually boots on the ground as events have unfolded, including on Saturday.
Very, very interesting. So we'll get the actual view from the street, and really they can break it down better than most anyone can about what happened, what participated in this, of course, and why, of course, the feeling that we cannot just convey on radio, but they can feel it. Whether or not this is still a powder keg, what they think is going to happen moving forward, what the real feeling in the city is. So we will definitely be talking to them first half, or right away. I think we're doing them together, right? Not half and half, we're doing them together, right?
Yeah, I think we'll be talking to him together,
Yeah,
yes.
So top of next hour, don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking in depth about Charlottesville and all that stuff that's going on, which has been horrible. And really, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it because, you know, I'm way up here in Minnesota, and we don't really have anything to that extent. The last time that we had a riot or even near that was when the Black Lives Matter event happened in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And that is a good 3 hours from me. So, you know, I'm kind of removed from the whole thing, but it has been an ugly scene, according to the news media and according to people that I see on social media. It has been an ugly scene and continues to be that as well. Now, Clarissa, you know, before we talk to these two individuals that have been there, that are there, what do you think that goes through these people's heads that would make them want to riot to such an extent?
You know, what's interesting about it is that people don't think about people that they're calling themselves white nationalists, or I would say white supremacists. They don't think about them as a gang. Oftentimes, you know what I mean? They're people that work regular jobs. They go to work every day. They have families. People don't think of them as the same as they conceive of a gang most of the time, but they are. It is a gang.
Sure.
It's the same sort of mentality, because gangs are drawn together by usually criminal activity. It's maybe not in the beginning, but they usually embark upon that. And with white nationalists, they're brought together by an ideology, but it's the same emotions underlying that, a feeling of being discarded in society, that they don't fit in, that it's really looking for some sort of a togetherness, and unfortunately they find it with a shared hatred rather than...
Sure. Well, what's the difference between this movement, and this is the question I had getting ready to go on air from quite a few people, what's the difference between that and the Black Lives Matter movement, really?
Big.
Okay.
The difference is big. And this is why. I think that when a group has been subjugated, when they're coming together to espouse pro-social values and to bring injustices to light, that is a more pro-social value.
Sure.
When you're coming together with racial slurs and hatred,
Sure.
it's different. But that being said, there have been pro-social movements that have become violent, that have become riots.
Oh, very true. But I mean,
then that's not different. You know?
I think a lot of us have we have a hard time wrapping our mind around that whole mindset of hatred like that. So I mean, to ask a question, well, what's the difference between? It's like comparing an apple to an orange. I mean, really, it's two different reasons to march.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll get to the bottom of that, of course, real time when we talk to the two journalists, and they'll really give us an insight of what's going on. Now, I know we have some great headlines as well on tap, and that, of course, is brought to you by thecriminalcode.com. That's your one-stop shop for all things true crime. Definitely put on there by, like always, our good doctor, Dr. Clarissa Cole, gives you insight into true crime, as well as gives you the doctor's notes on why she believes that this individual or persons or gang or what have you took the steps that they did in the crime world. Now, did you guys watch it all? Just to shift gears really quick before we get into the true crime stuff, you guys been watching American Ripper at all?
I have not seen the past couple of episodes because my job has been crazy, but it is on my DVR, so I will.
Yeah, that's actually getting quite interesting, really uncovering more about H.H. Holmes than I think anyone realized. There was some new stuff. We had, of course, with Adam Seltzer last night on the Tuesday show, which he primarily came on to talk about haunted Chicago, but he alluded to some potentially earth-shattering stuff.
Interesting. I love Adam Seltzer.
So it will be interesting to see what unfolds as we watch that show.
Awesome.
So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go smoothly right into true crime headlines. Dr. Cole, where would you like to take us first?
Well, we've talked about this kind of thing in previous weeks, and it just seems like, and you know what, even the main story tonight, talking about the nationalists, things like that, it all kind of folds in. So I wanted to start with a story that had to do with the internet, had to do with social media.
Sure.
Because I just feel like there's more and more. We talked about the girl with the car crash. So there is a Maryland couple, I guess, who they gained. They're saying it's internet infamy rather than fame, right? They gained internet infamy after a video of them playing a prank on their children. So they called it a prank.
Gotcha. Try to add a little sugar to the hatred there for a second, or the outcry, because I've actually heard a little bit of outcry about this. It was not really a nice prank, was it?
No, my goodness. That's the weird part about it. They're calling it a quote-unquote prank, but when you think of prank, what do you think that means?
I think of something
what does that
funny,
conjure in your mind?
Funny like a whoopee cushion. Yeah, I mean, something funny, something that everyone laughs at when it's all over. Not terrifying.
Right, like not scary.
Yeah.
Typically, right?
And infamy, though, get this, lasts a lifetime. Fame is fleeting, but infamy lasts a lifetime.
Oh, yeah. No, it does. And so what they did was they decided to, quote unquote, prank their children.
Good move.
They spread some ink around, I guess, that it was like a disappearing ink, but they decided to spread this ink around and then blame their kids, their children, for the stains.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful parenting right there.
Isn't it? Especially when you have, I guess, expletive-laced shouting matches. At the children, and you record their terror and
Well, that's a happy home right there. Come on.
Oh yeah, how it was described is very heartbreaking and disturbing.
So they lay a bunch of disappearing ink on the furniture in the living room, and they blame the children, I'm assuming.
Yes, and proceed to swear at them and just make them basically fear-filled and miserable, and they were trying to go for the shock factor. I think they were, age 7? No, sorry, 12 and 9.
Oh, they're just little kids yet.
Way too young for such things.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking maybe if they were like 16 or 17, maybe.
Yeah, but even then, it's still harsh.
Very, very young, and they were going for the shock factor to see if they could get more views.
Oh, well, it's all about the views.
They were,
yeah,
as we have discussed in the past.
No, it's all about the views, man. All about the views.
Well, now the kids have been taken away from them, and they are facing a $5,000 fine, and the pair faces up to 5 years in prison per count, so 10 years total.
Man, so they're not taking this lightly, the criminal justice system.
Correct. Yeah.
So what was it abuse? What are they citing to get these people in jail?
I'm glad you asked that. That is the toughest part, Joel. I mean, I think they're calling it neglect and, possibly abuse, but I think the actual charge was neglect. But what would the charge be for some of these things? Because I feel like the law hasn't caught up yet.
Well, but really, I mean, how are you neglecting them if you're right there yelling at them?
Yeah, no, I know. It's a strange charge.
I when I hear neglect, I think about, mom left the kids or dad left the kids go down to the bar or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the kids are all alone, and then the neighbor calls it in, and they see the kid, he's all alone or she's all alone, and next thing you know, the kid's being taken away. I wouldn't necessarily file this under neglect unless there's something that I'm missing here because, I mean, granted it's in bad taste, don't get me wrong, and granted they should not have done what they did, but does it lead to neglect and 10 years in prison? That's a good question. That seems a little heavy-handed to me.
Yeah, and it might. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't stand. If they got some sort of monetary fine and probation, that's what I expect. Yeah. To be honest.
Well, I would suppose it. I mean, these are definitely felonies they're getting hit with. I mean, they're not like petty misdemeanors. They're actually getting hit with felonies. But I'm trying to look and see what they're stating and what they're using as basically something to set precedent for this. Nothing really has.
Yeah, agreed. We've got another story in that exact same vein in Kentucky. London, Kentucky, by the way, had no idea there was a town called London, Kentucky.
What now?
It's where the Tower of London is. Everyone knows that.
In Kentucky, right?
So our good friends down south in Kentucky, there's a place called London, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And the Tower of London is what? Not there, Eric. It can't be there. I just saw it on TV the other day. It's still standing there.
In London, you mean?
Yes.
That's what I said.
So in London, Kentucky, there were two teens that have also gotten felony charges after they stole an ice cream cake for a prank to be broadcast on social media.
Gotcha. Well, that's always such a good thing to do. This is where all these damn kids are going wrong, is a social media angle.
How do you not know that that's a crime, though?
Well, no, I know, but we all did dumb crap. Don't get me wrong, right? The stuff that we probably would have gotten in trouble for. But then they're putting on social media and almost guaranteeing they're going to get caught. That still makes no sense to me.
It does, but I do feel like it's kind of, especially with the parents' case, it's upping the ante. I mean, the parents even said that they, quote, got carried away because they wanted to get more views. I mean, would these kids have actually committed a felony stealing incident if they didn't want to get views on social media? I don't know.
That's the thing. Now, we've cited social media twice.
We've been talking about it over and over again.
And that's the common theme here. Does social media create criminals, or does criminals create social media? Think about it.
It's a form. I'm trying to comprehend it. I've been thinking about it a lot because we have been talking about it so much. It just keeps coming up in so many of these crimes, especially these stupid crimes. And it's got to be a form. It's a new form, or a newish anyway, form of social pressure. That's really what it is.
And it's worldwide. It's not just your classmates anymore. Yeah. So I'm very disturbed by it because it is a trend. We've been talking about it over and over because it just keeps appearing in the news over and over. And it takes away, like Eric, you were talking about this with the girl with the car crash, that it takes away your sense of reality. And you know what these kids said when they got arrested for felony stealing? They said, "We're really going to jail for this?"
Well, okay, let me run this down a second. Okay, news outlet reported a news release. Oddly enough, a news outlet reported a news release. Why they had to put that in there? From Laurel County Sheriff John Root saying 18-year-old Seth Messer and 19-year-old Ajisa, I don't even know how to pronounce that one. Wow, that one's lost on me. Caught and stole the cake from Dunkin' Donuts last Friday and were arrested Tuesday after their getaway car was spotted in London, I wonder if they went me moo for the sirens. You know what I mean. The release says Cotton filmed Messer taking the cake valued at $25 to $30. Wow. Okay, so these two these two masterminds of criminal genius decided to steal a cake and then, of course, put it all over social media and thus far making themselves even more criminals by not helping their defense at all, by having it there. Wow. Okay, so now they get caught, and they're getting hit with third-degree burglary charges. Because of the circumstances, it's unclear if they have lawyers. And if they have lawyers, the lawyers should say, plea bargain, please. Plea bargain. These guys are idiots. There's no way I can win this case. So plea bargain me out, please.
Yeah, just the fact that one of them said, that one that stole the cake actually said, we're really going to jail for this, as though calling it a prank makes it less illegal.
Yeah, that'd be like, breaking into Eric's house, stealing his stuff, and going, oh, it was just a big prank. We worked together. You're still going to jail.
The other side of this, and why it's even more appropriate to call this peer pressure or social pressure, is people are watching the quote-unquote stars of YouTube, and there's other video outlets, but, primarily YouTube, and they see them do all these idiotic things and trying to outdo each other with pranks, with dumb things, with mean things, with stupid things, with dangerous things.
Yeah.
And they get it into their heads that somehow it's okay because you're seeing it through this outlet. And if you are not terribly A, intelligent, B, educated, C, sophisticated, or worldly, then think about it. You may genuinely, as we saw evidenced in this case, not realize that simply because you're putting it up on social media does not mitigate the crime. In many ways, it makes it worse.
Well, that is very true. And judging by these two's mug shots that they have here, the pictures, they do not look like honor roll students, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, they look like deer in the headlights.
They kind of look like
absolutely shocked.
They look like a Ebony and Ivory version of Beavis and Butthead.
It's bad, and they look younger to me than they actually were. I was surprised to read that they were 18 and 19. They look very young, and you're right. They look scared and just absolutely stunned. But what people don't think about, like on YouTube, a lot of the stuff on YouTube is real. A lot of it's not.
Very true. There's a fake element to a lot of stuff out there.
Of course. And they're staging to a lot of it. A lot of it.
You have to separate that. You got to separate that. What's fact, what's fiction. And maybe if someone told you to jump off a bridge, maybe you shouldn't do that, guys. Maybe you should look at YouTube for what it is. Ha, 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 funny, 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 and go about your day.
Right. Yeah, it's odd to me that we would have to explain to an 18 and 19-year-old, or God forbid, parents, that they should not jump off a bridge if your friends do it. Why are we having to teach grown adults that? That's very sad.
Yeah. I got to say, though, a lot of people of my generation, and your generation, Clarissa, because we're roughly the same age. My birthday actually falls on the 25th of this month, and and I'm feeling the age. But anyhow, a lot of us that are especially in the workforce complain about millennials. And these two are millennials, I do believe.
Yes.
Of that communication gap between our generation, X, and the millennials, it almost seems like it's uncrossable. And some of the dumb things I see people in the millennial, not all of them, not going to use that broad brush to paint them all this way, but the ones that we see in the media, they're not exactly the best and brightest of their generation. So trying to bridge that gap of, wow, this is really stupid, seems to be very hard to get into their heads that you don't have to be on YouTube or Facebook or this to be important. You don't need that. That's something that, we grew up without it, so we have that benefit. But it's almost like they have this insatiable need. Look at me, look at me, look at me, no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's weird for me. Like occasionally I will go on like Instagram, things like that, to look at different profiles. And when I see people of a certain age, and they do typically fall into the millennial category, not always, but I do see that, and I have never seen so many pictures of oneself
Oh my Lord,
than,
they love themselves.
You know, like every picture, like
yeah.
hundreds of pictures of a person's face. And I'm thinking, well, doesn't anything else go on in your life? Do you ever look outward? Ever? Or is the camera always faced toward you? It's very odd. It's very odd.
I know several business owners that have told me that they flat out do not want to hire millennials if they can get away with it.
Why is that?
Because they don't work. You know?
Well, we come from the generation that originated Slackers, that movie. And,
yeah.
You know, Generation X wasn't exactly known for
Well, I understand that, but, you know, when they're actually looking not to hire a group of people, which is illegal, but B, you know, that might speak to something of their work ethic. Not all, again. I do not want to say all, because there are some really good people that age group, really hardworking people that kind of maybe get a bad rap. In fact, I've had a couple tell me that, you know, my contemporaries kind of give me a bad rap because here I'm trying to work hard, go through school, and do this and do that, while they're running around on YouTube trying to make asses of themselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm surprised at how many older people though are also buying in. I have to say, you know,
yes,
it is like it's like a virus.
Exactly. And you're right. It is astonishing. I don't want to sound like the old guy going, "Get up my lawn, God." What I am trying to just say is that it seems to be across the board, but more that generation because they grew up with it, where we didn't. Yeah, I mean, if I had to quantify numbers, it'd be higher that way than our way. But you're right. We're not immune either. Our generation.
You know, my favorite thing, and I see this come up on Facebook all the time. I use social media, people. I see it on Facebook all the time. It's usually a picture of a cabin somewhere, like a nice one, nice looking cabin. And it says, if somebody paid you $5 million to live in this cabin for a month with no internet, would you do it?
Yes.
And I'm like, they could pay me nothing and I would do it. Nothing.
I'd pay them $5 million.
Yeah, because we did that, though. We lived that way. And Eric, he did it longer than we did. So, I mean, you know, his generation.
I get it. Even, there it goes.
That's right. So, you know, it's one of those deals of...
all my pubic hair fell out.
But anyhow, I'll stop my ranting about millennials here for a second because, you know, they're not all bad. In fact, the vast majority of them are good. You have good, hardworking people. We just happen to hear about the idiots.
Yes, it's true. Like any generation, we hear about the idiots. But, speaking of, I do want to get to this case because I was really surprised to see it in the news today. Did you see that there was an update in the Natalie Holloway disappearance?
No, I did not hear that. So go ahead.
Do you know how long ago that was now?
Oh, it's been years.
I know, my gosh. This is when I feel old too, I have to say. So Natalie Holloway was a student that took just for those of you that don't know, very pretty blonde girl. She took a graduation trip to Aruba. Okay, and she was she disappeared. This is over 10 years ago now that Natalie Holloway disappeared. And there was another kid named Joran van der Sloot.
Sure.
Who he's Dutch, who is now serving a 28-year prison sentence in Peru for killing somebody else, for killing business student Stephanie Flores. And this is creepy. She died on the 5th anniversary of Holloway's disappearance.
Oh, wow.
But there was an informant, I guess, that said that they had direct knowledge of Natalie's disappearance, and they led investigators to what turned out to be human remains.
Really?
Yes.
So now, of course, DNA testing will come into play, and they're going to find out whether that's Natalie, I'm sure.
Yes.
You know,
it's the first time any human remains were found. There were so many leads in this case that led nowhere. They searched everywhere and never found anything. This is the first time. It's they're saying the first credible lead in 12 years.
What do you guys think?
This is on Aruba?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, we went to Aruba in that time frame, and people were still talking about it. We were there about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and people were still and we were actually in the hotel. We walked right past the casino where she was last seen, apparently, and we were actually staying there. I didn't know that till we were there. And, people were talking about it. It was still kind of the talk of the town. It came up more than once. So we're just there vacationing with the kids, you know, so we weren't bringing it up, but it came up. I think, finally, this guy, what is he, son of a diplomat or something, right?
Yeah, wasn't he Johan
He's trouble.
Schlupen or whatever? Yeah,
no question about
he was a Dutch guy. Yeah, what was his name? The guy that allegedly killed her. What was his name again?
Vandersloot. Was he like a prominent family or something?
I do believe he was.
Son of a diplomat. Yeah, and that's how he got away with. There was a delay for the other offense where he almost got away with it. And I mean, he's had a lot going for him. Obviously, he's a child of privilege.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he clearly is a, let's face it, severe misogynist. He's a killer.
Oh yeah.
And there may be more than just these two.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a pattern. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, now
5 years to the day.
Yeah.
Come on.
If I'm not mistaken, though, aren't diplomats immune from any kind of persecution or prosecution, rather?
Well, not their families.
Okay, so it does not extend to family.
Different rules. I don't. Is murder under that? I don't think murder comes under that, does it?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. It
shouldn't. So if you're a diplomat,
they get out of traffic tickets, at the UN is what it comes
to. Gotcha. Because someone just popped up in the chat window from Facebook saying, well, wouldn't he have diplomatic immunity?
Well, and to be clear, Joran Vandersloot was the son of a diplomat.
Exactly.
And he probably would not. It doesn't usually extend to the whole family.
Well, that's good to know.
I've seen sons of diplomats.
It's certainly not murder.
No,
I don't
I've
think
seen sons of diplomats in prison before. So.
Yeah, I don't think that murder is covered by that immunity. I think petty stuff like traffic tickets, jaywalking, stuff like that, of course, be immunity, because you're not from here. Maybe you weren't familiar with those particular traffic laws. But murder, we all know murder is kind of bad. It's universal bad.
But, he did get, honestly, in Aruba, he did get away with it. I feel like there was, for me anyway, I felt like there was a mountain of circumstantial evidence against him in Aruba. And he was never charged. Nobody ever faced justice on the disappearance.
Well, it'll be interesting.
Remember this, too, though, that Aruba, though largely independent, is still a protectorate of Holland, of the Netherlands. So that might have factored into things as well.
Interesting.
Is Aruba still considered a third world country, or are they now industrialized? That's another question popping up.
It's the Caribbean.
Gotcha. Because people are asking, well, how sophisticated was their police and criminal techniques at that time?
They were terrible. Okay, there was widespread criticism about the Aruba investigation because it was so bad, so bungled. I mean, I think that there could have been potentially DNA evidence if it had been handled properly.
So
but
we'll keep an
was
eye.
Absolutely bungled. But then again, do a lot of murders happen there? No, they don't.
No.
Especially of Americans.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that whole development as it unfolds. Maybe we can do a future show on that too. Should any real evidence be brought to bear? We're going to run a break, and when we come back, we're going to have more true crime headlines with the beautiful and talented Dr. Clarissa Cole. After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. We'll be right back after a word from these sponsors.
Green light. Hey girl, school zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teens, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure, for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code.
And welcome back, everybody, to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. And I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
the three amigos of true crime. When we left, we were actually talking about new development for everyone that's just tuning in about the Natalie Holloway case and how there may be some new evidence in the way of some body remains of her body, possibly her body, found in Aruba. So we're all going to keep an eye on that as that develops. Where do we want to go next? I see a couple of Florida people are in trouble. So that's always, that's every week. So, I mean, they're always there. But where would you like to go?
Yeah, we have quite a few. We have like 4 Florida stories, I think, this week. So I think we should get to one of them. The first one is actually a more serious one. I'm going to start with the one that is in opioids, because opioid addiction is huge in this country right now.
Yeah,
it is.
It's giant.
It's very, very bad. And so what happened was a man named Sam Brunellis from Florida. He was arrested on suspicion of manslaughter and in relation to more deaths because he was selling, it sounds like he has been selling cocaine. So I'm not sure if what he was trying to sell was cocaine, but it was this drug that he was selling was cut with elephant tranquilizer.
And what kind of, does it cite what drug that is then? That
yes.
was cut with?
So cartaphenil.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm totally pronouncing that right, but fentanyl is the human version. That's and fentanyl, by the way, do not mess with that.
They'll kill you. It'll kill you.
It will absolutely kill you. It is one of the most powerful painkillers known to man. We should not be using it for recreational purposes. But cartaphenil is the version of that. It's a synthetic or carfentanil for elephant tranquilization.
Wow.
Like wild animals.
Damn. So, but take down an elephant, you'll have
and you
no
know
trouble.
what? There's one notable thing about elephants. They're really big.
They are.
They're
huge.
So, you versus an elephant. I wonder.
Don't take drugs meant for an elephant.
Exactly.
Unless
That's the moral.
The size of an elephant.
That is true. That's the moral of the story. Is if you're not the size of an elephant, you should not be taking elephant-sized doses.
Well, and this is the thing that's so horrible about it is that apparently the dealers started using it in heroin, mixtures of heroin, to increase the potency of the heroin.
Gotcha. Well, that is horrible to hear that he's A, selling heroin, B, mixing heroin with elephant tranquilizer, and the only good thing is C, he was caught and arrested.
Yes.
So,
thank goodness. Well, but after several people are dead.
How many died? Do they figure? How many? Is he being charged with?
One for sure, and they suspect him in 2 more.
Okay, reported that Michael Martinez, 26, and Camilo Sanchez, 30, were found dead at a home in Jebel area, on March 24th. A third man with Martinez and Sanchez was revived thanks to multiple doses of anti-overdose medication, Narcan. So, I can see that. So 2 for sure, maybe more as we move on here. Man, they better hit. I'm surprised they're not hitting on murder charges, to be honest with you.
I know, especially since he probably knew.
He knew it was deadly.
It was cut with that.
He knew it was deadly. I mean, how can he not know it's deadly? But then again, we're not talking about, mental giants here.
Well, and they're also, I think that what a lot of guys say that I've talked to that have been charged with things like this is that, well, I'm not forcing them to take it. I'm not telling them how much to take. So they feel like that somehow absolves them of responsibility.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not the one that told them to take all that.
Yeah. I just sold it.
Yeah, they wanted it. They bought it. What they did with it after was entirely up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't play well with the justice system. So it will be interesting to see what he gets. I hopefully they up him to murder. To be honest, at least second degree. Come on.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not.
Yeah,
I am too. Although they may just be going for the charge that they think that they can get. But
that is
I would
true.
think that second degree would be warranted.
I would think so because he knew it was lethal. He knew it was deadly. But then again, heroin, of course,
Heroin is too.
is deadly here. I mean, it's not like, oh my God, the heroin's nothing. But when he added that other thing, oh, you killed them. No, heroin will flat out kill you as well. So, many stars have died. I want to say even John Belushi, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, you can correct me because I know you might know better than I do. He died of heroin, didn't he? Wasn't he?
It was a combination.
It was a combo.
Okay.
Yep.
And
then, yeah, it was heroin and cocaine.
Yeah. So I mean, even way back then, Gilda Radner, she died too of heroin, I do believe.
No, she was cancer.
No, was she? I'm sorry, I misspoke. Sorry about that, guys. I do apologize. For some reason, I thought she died of overdose. I'm kind of looking at the different stars. Oh my Lord, there are a lot of stars.
Chris Farley.
Yeah,
Chris Farley.
that's what That's yep. And then who was that? Look at this list.
Heath
oh
Ledger.
My Lord. Yep, I was looking at that. Heath Ledger died. I did not know he was a heroin death.
He had a bunch of pills, but all opioids. See, that's the problem when people talk to me about drugs. I'm never thinking of the actual drug. I'm thinking of the class that the drugs are in because they act the same. So whether it's heroin or OxyContin, that's the same thing to me because it's in the same class of drug. There is no difference. So when somebody says, well, I never tried heroin, I take Oxy. Well, that's the same thing.
Let me tell you a story that happened to me. Years ago when I was a young guy, I was playing basketball. And I sprained my ankle pretty good. I mean, like black and blue sprayed. It was definitely hurting. You know what the doctor gave me back then for the pain? Demerol.
What?
He gave me Demerol for a sprained ankle. And so being a dumb young kid, I'm like, okay, I got my pain meds. Maybe, it'll help me. I took 2 of those and I was orbiting Jupiter.
Oh, yeah. No, I've actually... for those of you that are interested, we have bad kidneys in my family, bad renal system. I've had kidney stones twice.
Oh, I mean, I had them once.
And both times they didn't catch it until I just had to pass them. They couldn't break them up, so I was in the hospital. And they gave me morphine both times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see why people get addicted.
Oh, yeah. So anyhow, I also had kidney stones, and they gave me morphine or some, I think fentanyl, too, if I'm not mistaken. Because it was bad, though. I had one that's 13 millimeter stuck in my kidney. No. And so I actually had to cut open my kidney, like the old school, cut it right open. And, man, I will never forget. That was about 10 years ago. So, man, I never want those damn things again because, wow, that hurt a lot. Like, a lot. But anyhow, this guy, right, I was like 22, 23, athletic kid, gives me Demerol. My friends are like, hey, can I get one of those Demerols off you? These things. And he gave me a bottle of 30 of them.
What?
I don't know.
Earth. Well, we're to the wise about kidney stones, by the way. If you don't want kidney stones, don't drink energy drinks.
No, drink Gatorade.
Yeah, that's fine. But the ones that contain a lot of caffeine and the guarana and those weird things like that, your renal system can't process that stuff.
That's right. And drink a lot of water. Keep yourself hydrated. That's what I learned. Anyhow, kidney stones are horrible, and right now people are popping up. The one woman does pop up. One of the brave women that are listening says, indeed, kidney stones, at least in my case, was more painful than childbirth.
That's what they said. I have not had kids, but I've had kidney stones twice, and if it's anything like that, oh my God.
Mad kudos to you, ma'am, for stepping up and going, because that's what every woman throws in my face. Well, you think that hurt. Try childbirth. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's trying to poop out a football.
But really, and then the doctor, when I had kidney stones, he's like, yeah, that pain's right up there. And I've heard women tell me it's actually worse.
It's very bad.
If they had to choose one, that's actually worse. But hey, I'm not one to judge. But there again, ma'am, thank you for popping in. Someone that's got, 4 children and had kidney stones once, and she'd rather go all over having the 4 kids again. then go into the kidney stones again. So,
well, for men, they say it's kind of like trying to pee out a bullet.
Yeah. It's worse. They say it is worse for men, but I mean, I actually did pass out from pain.
Oh yeah,
when I had kidney stones.
Yep. It was not
bad.
fun. It's not fun, kids. So don't get it. Don't have kidney stones. And if you do have kidney stones, catch them early before they get lodged in your urethra and you have to have surgery.
Definitely go in early. Yeah, if you feel burning sensation back there, you think it's going to go away.
It's one of two things. Either Betty.
That's one of my favorite '80s groups, the Burning Sensation.
Hey, you know what? Here's my PSA for the day. Either Betty was dirty, or you have kidney stones and you pee when it burns. You pee. One of those two.
I get it checked out either way.
Get it checked out. One will be penicillin, and the other one will be, echo. That echo thing that breaks it up. So one of those two things. Okay, getting back on the true crime horse. Where would we like to go next? What lowly
I love this story.
Crime.
So, also in Florida. Okay, so there was a man in Florida who called 911. There were several of these, but he called 911 in the early morning hours, and he was linked to a dispatcher, and he told the dispatcher that his grandmother was having a stroke in the parking lot of a nearby Hooters.
What?
Yeah.
So he calls 911. I could just imagine that call. 911, what's your emergency?
They hear weirder, right? She's having a stroke in the Hooters parking lot. I need to get there.
Yeah. What's your location, sir? Well, we're a Hooters. Just imagine
my grandma is at Hooters.
My grandma's at Hooters and she's having a stroke. Either she was really awe-inspired and it kind of gave her, just total overwhelming sensation, or she's having a stroke, one of the two. But either way, I need you here.
She loves their lunch buffet.
Yes.
The wings are awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
So he pleaded with the dispatcher for a ride to the parking lot and offered to pay responders to take him there immediately. And apparently a cop was nearby. So the policeman picked him up in his patrol car to take him to this and, sent an ambulance, all that.
Yeah.
And the police said, as I let Mr. Hinkle out of my patrol vehicle, he said thank you and took off in a full sprint across the parking lot.
Into the Hooters.
No, apparently his girlfriend was having slight car trouble in a nearby Burger King parking lot.
So wait a minute. Hold on now. Let's back up. Let's back up the tape. So here's the deal. He calls.
There's no slacker millennial.
He calls 911 claiming his grandma's in a Hooters having a stroke. He needs to get there ASAP. But really he was there to aid his girlfriend with car trouble.
Yes.
Well, that was a bright moment there. Why didn't you just call a cab?
I don't know, but I hope that girl breaks up with him, like, ASAP.
Either that or this is the most genius move this man's ever done.
Can you imagine the cop, though? Like, wait, what's happening? Why is he running?
Yeah. He just got a ride on Florida's dime.
Yes, yeah, in the ambulance. I mean, he got, probation, and he has to do community service, and he has to pay at least a $500 fine. I mean, it's really expensive.
Ride. Expensive ride.
Yes.
Wow. Huh.
But he's not the only man in Florida calling 911. There are others.
Oh, I see this next one coming right down the boulevard here, and I cannot wait.
At least 6 or 7 people who called 911 that day.
It's a busy service.
So a Florida man called 911, a 911 dispatcher, who they're generally, I think, very responsible, very even-keeled people. He called the 911 dispatcher asking for sex.
Okay, now I've had to call 911, unfortunately. And the last thing that went through my mind is, what are you wearing?
How discombobulating would that be if you're the operator, though? I'd be like,
yeah. Oh, I'm calling because I witnessed this accident, and this is da-da-da-da-da. And by the way, what are you wearing?
Exactly. And he admits to asking her that.
Hey, baby, I really dig your phone voice. So what happened?
Course, and he gives the address to, because that's what they asked for, right? The 911 dispatcher asked,
why not?
What's your address? So he gave it. He gave his address, and police showed up at his house, and they found him in the bathroom, and he told police he called 911 because it was free and didn't think he could get in trouble.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine that? They show up. You're not her.
Lord.
Come in.
Those Florida men.
Yeah. The police come knocking. Well, come in, officers. Oh my God, it's not you! No! And they probably tased him. Yeah, it would have been great. Would have been great to be there.
It really, I'm like, what? How do you not know you're going to get in trouble?
Is there a tape here? Let's see if there's actually a audio associated with this little video here.
Is there?
Let me see. Let's see. I'm looking for any YouTube links that may link us to the actual audio. No, there is nothing that I see anyway. But, the caller advises the 911 dispatcher that he's in the mood for sex and he's in the bathroom waiting. And he is also touching himself, if you know what I'm saying.
Goodness.
No.
Yes, he may.
I don't believe that.
And he also
Not
said this.
Florida, man.
Do you want to know why he called 911? It was a sex emergency.
As I'm taking a drink of water, always comes out my nose.
Autoerotic.
Exactly. Okay, he faces now a misdemeanor charge for misuse of a wireless 911 system. Police
charge about being dumb.
Yep. And they also show that Basso has arrests for theft and other crimes dating back to 2001, folks. So he should have known, having that extensive criminal record, that maybe he'll call 911, call him the popo for a little bopo was not the right thing to do.
No.
Wow.
It was a no.
It was a no. The popo don't want anything. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
That's the last thing I'd want to go to prison for.
Can you imagine? They ask you, so what are you here for? Well, I called 911 and I asked that lady, what you wearing, baby? And then they beat the crap out of me.
Yeah, it was a sex emergency. Not the exact thing you want to say when you first come into prison. Oh, man. So this next one is, this is very nightmarish to me, even though it does not apply to me in any way. It happened in Los Angeles on Rodeo Drive.
Oh, yeah. Tell us more. Oh, sorry. Yeah, tell us more.
No, not that kind of story. So there's a man named Dr. Kadri. He's a plastic surgeon, and he's got an office on Rodeo Drive. So as you would imagine, I'm sure he's quite expensive and has patients that are, potentially celebrities.
Yeah,
right?
On Rodeo, nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm assuming he does. And he reported that a former employee has stolen thousands of patient records.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. My.
Like the actual paper records.
Wow.
With photographs, with all the procedure details, with the entire medical.
Oh, damn! So that's some valuable stuff there.
Extremely valuable.
Yeah. So he has a disgruntled employee that decided, hey, I'm mad, and we happen to work on the world famous Rodeo Drive. I'm sorry, it's still rodeo. I don't care who you are. It's rodeo, okay? We're working on Rodeo Drive here, and we got so-and-so coming in. I'm going to steal all these records. I bet you TMZ would pay a pretty penny for them.
Yeah, well, so this employee was dirty apparently anyway, because they were confronted about embezzling money. And once she was confronted, she quit. And they noticed then that the records were gone. And on top of that, this employee claimed to have lost, I guess they had company cell phones. She claimed to have lost this company cell phone, but they found it. Okay, so they found the cell phone. And on this cell phone, she had taken pictures of records, pictures of before and after photos.
Wow.
And had been sending them out to people.
Man. Is that like a business card for him though? Hey, here's the before and after. Go hit him up. He does great work. So why? Just saying.
You have to sign a consent for that.
That is true. Okay, now looking down the list here, getting away from fake hooters and people that stole records, I'm looking at shoplifters at Walmart.
You know what? This is one of those where I cannot decide, honestly, if this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen or if it's actually oddly brilliant.
Criminal masterminds.
The line is gray.
It really is. So Halloween that's still a ways away, right?
A little bit.
A little bit, but it didn't deter 3 people from donning full costumes to shoplift at the local Walmart.
Oh boy. Okay.
One was dressed as a bull, one was dressed as a werewolf, and one was disguised as a gorilla.
Perfect costumes. I would have went with the pajama pants personally, but these guys, they really went over. They did it all.
It was a whole herd.
It was a whole herd of people.
And they stole more than $561 of merchandise.
Wow, either the zoo just let out or people are stealing. I'm not sure which is going on. And it happened during the day. That's what's funny.
It was a power trio.
It was.
I'd be like, what am I in the Wizard of Oz? What's happening?
Yeah.
Lions and tigers and bears. Is it the dumbest thing? It's the dumbest thing.
Well,
right?
It happened at 1 p.m. on a Saturday.
Which is a busy time.
That's a busy time. I mean, and how you not going to remember the gorilla in aisle 12 eyeing up the goods? He was over by the bananas, and I knew he was going to steal them.
I knew he was no good.
I knew he was no good.
And then he peeled out of there.
Really, this is dumb. I mean, okay, now I get it. Talk about concealing your identity, but the getaway odds are pretty slim. I mean, what's the APB going to read? Giant monkey? Werewolves? I mean, really, they're going to catch you pretty quick. Presuming.
I mean, if you get rid of those costumes,
wouldn't they rip the costume off right when they got out?
Okay, well, Clarissa, does it say how they got caught?
It doesn't. So I have no idea. I mean, did they they follow the trail of costume pieces?
Maybe. Did the gorilla try to put the banana peel on the ground to slip them up? I mean,
follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah,
wow.
I have no idea how they got caught, but I don't know even what I would say. Like there was a bull that came in. And I think he was taking stuff.
Yeah.
Follow the yellow brick road.
It was horrible, man. He had a bad attitude. But here's the thing: is they were charged all with retail theft, but the bigger charge may be conspiracy.
Oh,
ooh,
because that would be a bigger charge.
That's how they get you.
Is the conspiracy to do it? Now the charge, of course, is I shouldn't just say just shoplifting, but shoplifting. But then the conspiracy to do it often carries a heftier fine and imprisonment longer than the shoplifting charge.
Interesting. Sure. You know what? I hate to do this because I know you don't know about the story, which is very unfair, but it really does piggyback well.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Go right ahead. Let's piggyback away.
So this just happened. It happened in Durango, Colorado. An actual bear broke into an SUV and took the vehicle for an unintentional joyride through a Colorado neighborhood.
Oh. Was it Yogi by chance? Hey, boo-boo, we gotta go steal that Outback.
Ron Cornelius of Durango said he and his wife were roused. They were roused early on August 4th by the sound of the Subaru SUV rolling into their yard.
It was a Subaru!
And striking their mailbox.
Wow. Yep. It's always a Subaru in state parks. Always.
It's true. And Cornelius said, usually I don't get up at 5 o'clock unless there's a bear driving a car down the street.
I would have been snapping pictures quick, too. Especially if the bear put his head out the sunroof while he's driving. That would have been cool.
He said that. So he called 911 before he realized that, because he thought someone stole it. So he didn't realize it was a bear at the time. He called 911 before he realized that the SUV's sole occupant was a bear. So sheriff deputies, they respond thinking that it's like a stolen car, maybe a drunk person, and they rolled. They determined the bear had broken in and in a neighbor's driveway and somehow knocked it out of park, causing it to roll down the street with the bear inside.
Who do they charge for this now? I mean, who's going to jail for this act? Is the bear going to see some time?
Hey, Yogi, Mr. Ranger's going to be very angry.
They put him in a lineup? I mean, which bear stole your car? Don't look at me. I had nothing to do with it. That was Boo-Boo.
Oh, you know what? This bear is a repeat criminal.
Oh, he's done it before.
This bear's a repeat criminal. Yeah. It says that the same black bear made a daytime visit to Starbucks in Durango earlier in the summer, climbed the utility pole outside, and knocked out the electricity to the Starbucks when it received an electrical shock from the power line.
Now that is the most sophisticated criminal all night, right there. He had it well plot out.
He's not a criminal. He's just a people person.
That's exactly. But he thought, okay, if I knock the power out, I can get what I want. You see, and really, they'll have no way to defend themselves.
It'll be chaos. They'll be coming outside with their drinks.
Exactly. They'll never expect a bear.
Oh my, that is.
Oh, that's barely funny.
Have I ever told you about the time I was DJing a party in some kind of iffy but transforming neighborhood in Los Angeles?
Ever tell you about the time I was chased by a bear? Oh, go ahead.
And we had a metallic. This is speaking of the power line. We had a metallic balloon take out all the power in like a 10-mile square.
Wow.
That was released, just came out the window of the party, hit the power line, fried it all out. We were kind of up on a hill. You could see the power going out. It's like a movie. You could see it going out for block after block after block after block after block after block.
Gotcha.
It was hilarious.
What? Did anybody get charged with anything?
Oh, they got charged all right.
No, because of course they never found out how it happened or where it happened from. It just, oh well, stuff. Yeah, they just hit the reset button and everything came back on eventually.
I got a bear story for you guys. Up in Ely, Minnesota, which a lot of our listeners are listening around this area will know where that is, but there's an area called the International Bear Center. And at the Bear Center, during its early days, thank God, before they put plexiglass between you and the bear, you were in the same area as the bear. They'd just let it loose. It just kind of meander around people. And so it decided it wanted to chase a few people. And I was one of these poor unlucky souls.
This is like a gladiator
It was. It felt like it. I was throwing people in front of me, small children, old ladies. They're all going in front of this bear.
It was a rite of passage.
It was very scary because it like something I had back in those days. Do you remember Bit-O Honey?
Yes.
I had one of those in my back pocket. I was probably maybe 16 at this point, and I happened to have a Bit-O Honey in my back pocket. Well, evidently black bears really, really dig Bit-O Honey.
Who doesn't?
So it started chasing me, right? And I'm running for my life, okay? And I'm talking, this is a big area. I'm running. And this guy yells, "Take the Bit-O Honey out of your back pocket." And so, this bear, after me, so I take it out, I throw it. Bear stops, and he goes after that direction. I'm like, oh, my God. I'm telling you, I might have had to change my underwear after that. I'm just saying, it was very scary. It was all teeth, claws, after my Bit-O Honey.
You know why they tell you to stand your ground with a bear, right?
Oh, there was no standing my ground. This thing was 400-pound black bear that had been fed all its life by people. So it was a big fat one that didn't care about any of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, but they always tell you that. Like, if if a bear is going to charge you or something, you're supposed to stand your ground.
Yeah. So
you know why? Because they can run 35 miles per hour. You're going to die. You might as well just stand and watch it coming.
Well, yeah. Stop running. You're just going to die tired.
You're just going to die tired.
No, but this bear, right, I did not know any of that. None of that went through my small head at that point. My teenage head is to stand there and go, rah, back at the bear. I thought maybe just running. And there was there were people in there with me, and this is how crazy this was at this point. They let people actually in there with the bears, right? In the enclosure with these black bears that were full of teeth and claws, like, oh, yeah, great, let's feed the bear. I was throwing grandmothers in front of me to slow this bear down, and it did not slow him down. All right? Nothing was slowing this bear down. Nothing. Until the bystander, throw the Bit-O Honey!
I have a cow story that is somewhat similar. Very quickly, I grew up in Wisconsin, which has a lot, dairy farm territory.
Sure.
And I was working, doing theater contracts, and there was somebody that was urban. He had never seen a group of cows before, like ever. And I'm like, hey, let's go in and see the cows. Go into the pasture. Yeah, go into the pasture. And he's standing in the pasture, and he's holding grass, because I was like, I picked some grass, and I said, they'll come and they'll eat it, they're fine. He's holding this grass out, and one of the cows starts walking over because she sees it. Well, then the other cows see this cow walk over, so they start walking over. And as soon as you know it, there are probably, 15 cows walking toward this urban kid.
Night of the living cow.
Oh, yeah. It's like a herd of 15 cows, right? And the kid, because they're big, starts to get scared. So he starts to kind of walk away, but he's still holding the grass. And then he starts to go faster. And now he's at a trot.
Oh, no.
Now the cows are at a trot,
too.
too.
Yep, they're after him.
Yeah. they're following him, and he starts screaming because he's being chased by these cows, and I'm yelling at him, just stop.
Yeah, first time
he stops, he turns around, and all the cows stop too.
The first time I went cow tipping was in Wisconsin, by the way. Just a little backstory there. It was a good time. We got to run a break. We come back. We're going to be talking all things Charlottesville and what's been transpiring since the riots and all the unrest. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back right after this. After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. We'll be right back after a word from these sponsors.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Excuse me. Thousands of cancer patients can't afford a place to stay when the best treatment is far from home. A room shouldn't be the difference between life and death. Let's make sure that everyone who needs a room gets one. Let's make some noise. Let's help the American Cancer Society finish the fight.
Text ROOM to 41518 to donate $10. Only in the forest can you see this. But nothing beats the moment you see that.
Cool!
That's your child's eyes opening up to a world of possibilities.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org. Learn about forests near you and discover cool things to do when you go. And you might just see this. Visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Better known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. Now, Eric, we have two people are covering what's going on in Charlottesville as we speak, and I'm going to let you do the introductions quick, and we'll get to that ASAP here.
Yeah, for those of you who have been, off the planet or something, or at least out of the country, here's what's been going on. White nationalists gathered on Saturday for a Unite the Right march in the relatively progressive town of Charlottesville, Virginia, home of the University of Virginia. The rally was organized in opposition to a plan by local officials to remove a statue of Robert E. Lee, the Confederacy's top general, from Emancipation Park in Charlottesville. That plan prompted a similar protest in May, led by white nationalist Richard B. Spencer, as well as a Ku Klux Klan rally in July. The tectonic forces behind the rally run much deeper than the removal of statues, however. Right-wing extremism, including white nationalism and white supremacy, is on the rise, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Many feel this extremism and attendant violence has been exacerbated by attitudes and policies of President Trump. And, of course, there's an amazing and involved and unfolding aftermath, and we will certainly be getting to that with our two guests. And they are Jackson Landers. Jackson Landers is an author, journalist, and adventurer specializing in science and history, in particular invasive species and de-extinction. There's a joke in there somewhere about this story, but I don't know where it is. His work has been published in Smithsonian, Slate, The Washington Post, Mental Floss, Thrillist, and the New York Times. He's a resident of Charlottesville, is a host on a local progressive talk radio station, WPBC, and has been covering the events on the ground there as they have been unfolding. His most recent book, Eating Aliens, chronicles a year and a half spent hunting and fishing for invasive species and finding out whether we can eat our way out of some ecological disasters. Greg Pettit has been reporting local news for WCHV Radio in Charlottesville, Virginia since 2014. He was involved and uninjured when James Fields Jr. ran his car into a crowd of protesters and two other cars at a Charlottesville protest. Mr. Pettit feels no allegiance to any political party, but says he tries to be kind to others without regard to their beliefs. Now that is worth $1 million. Welcome to the program, Jackson and Greg.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good evening, guys. And I understand that you're watching this unfold real time. Now, the only exposure that I've had to this story, of course, is the national media. And, we love the national media, but they don't really sometimes have time to tell the complete story. What was the atmosphere like just before for lack of a better term, seriously, guys, before all hell broke loose?
Well, you mean on the day, a Saturday, or you mean through the whole story of this
That's
thing?
Saturday, though. See, I was not expecting it to break out the way it did. I mean, I did hear murmurings of that there was going to be this rally going on because there were plans to take down Robert E. Lee statue, which, of course, I did talk to a couple of individuals that live in the South, kind of get their feeling of what they felt. News individuals that I've known over the years and what the climate is, how people really feel. Some was said, you know what, they're really hurt about it, that they're taking down their history and legacy, and others are like, hey, let's pull it down, let's move on. It seems to be very divided down there. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely.
So
yeah, why don't we feature Jackson now here at the beginning of the show, because he's got to go. Okay, please, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So the first thing you have to understand is, nobody cared much about, to be perfectly honest, nobody cared a whole lot. You didn't hear that much about the statue before the presidential campaign of 2016, in particular after the primaries. And what happened, and I've lived in Charlottesville for 25 years. I used to be politically active. I am nonpartisan now because I'm a journalist and I can't take sides in these things. But so I have a perspective of kind of knowing all of the figures in this for a very long time. And the statue became a proxy for Donald Trump because it was something, frankly, that Donald Trump supporters liked. Well, a lot of people weren't Donald Trump supporters like the statue also. Although I don't doubt, it is very heartfelt. The people who, and I don't really take a position on tearing the statue down or not personally. But it was in particular after Trump was inaugurated, people started looking more and more at how and I guess this is, maybe white people changed their mind. I guess I should have a correction. Black people in Charlottesville had felt for a long time they didn't like the statue. And so this was something that sort of grew and grew and grew and kind of, hit a crisis point. As far as how things, felt right before, the rally, the day before, gosh, for those of us who've been on the story for a long time, I mean, back in June, I was trying to tell, I was sending out, pitches to, like the New Republic and Rolling Stone and saying, listen, guys, this is going to be really big. Give me an assignment. Let's cover this. And they're all like, I don't think it's going to be of interest to our readers. Very few people, until like a week or two before, it took a long time for it to sink in for most people how big a deal this is going to be. And those of us who are paying attention, we knew it was going to be this bad. So on the radio show that I do every week with several co-hosts on WPBC, we've been talking about this for weeks, saying people could die. We've been trying. I mean, in fact, we were the first ones to report that. I think on that show, we were the first one, the Monday Roundtable, to report that this is going to happen. And we were trying to tell everyone this is going to be really bad. We need to prepare. And I think it was like the last week before. That was when ordinary people of Charlottesville started to realize how bad this was going to be. And then even before it broke into a full-fledged riot, I remember as soon as I took those first steps off the downtown mall out into Market Street in front of Lee Park, which we now call Emancipation Park, it was just, you go around the corner and there was just this deadening of the sound that happened when I was around the corner just by the buildings and the fountain. And you take a few steps, and it's this like in a movie when you see a football player coming out of the locker room for the first time into the arena, and everyone's just screaming, and it's this massive tableau of humanity at their best and at their worst. And, it's just not, even though you're prepared for it, it was just the shock of coming and having the noise and people waving signs with literal swastikas. I mean, we were talking in the abstract before about, some of these people were neo-Nazis. And you're seeing people with Nazi flags and just every kind of, everything we could think of as like what would represent sort of the antithesis of American values was on display. And then, of course, and I'm not going to gloss over it, I did see violence on the part of almost every group there. But that was what, that was the tableau of coming around the corner, everything's normal, and all of a sudden this is in front of you. And to see that in your hometown, I just sit and try to imagine that, and there's just nothing else like it.
I could just imagine. I mean, actually, I can't imagine, Jackson. I cannot imagine seeing that in my own hometown. It's one thing for us to be sitting...
This is a street that I walk down every single day.
Exactly. Like, I'm from the little town of Duluth, Minnesota, right next to Lake Superior. I would never imagine something like that erupting in my small city of 100,000 people.
Well, how terrifying would that be in more of a mixed community, too? Like I said this on the air, I live in the largest Sikh community in California. And how terrifying would that be? If you were in a more mixed community, what is, I actually don't know. What is Charlottesville like as far as ethnic makeup?
It's pretty
and
diverse.
Religious? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's a university town. We have the University of Virginia here, and that, attracts some of the top minds from all over the world. So we have a large black community that's been here and growing for, hundreds of years probably since it was a small town. So they are natives just like the rest of us. There are a lot of white Caucasian people. Among my long-term friends here, probably 2/3 of them or more are Jewish. You could, depending on what neighborhood you're in, you walk down the street, you will see Sikhs, you will see Hindus. You'll see people visiting from China. We get tourists from all over the world. There are a lot of sites here that tourists come here for. It's a very racially, ethnically, and religiously and intellectually diverse place. That sort of defines. It's an intellectual melting pot, and that sort of defines, what this place is.
So, Greg and Jackson, I'm going to go on a limb here and say most of the people that were protesting on the neo-Nazi side are not from Charlottesville. Because
all but there were maybe 10 at that from Charlottesville, literally. So you got to understand, people are under this impression that what Charlottesville has this problem with, there's some kind of clash here going on between neo-Nazis and the left, and it's the right and left clashing. There's one guy, there's one person who is, I'm just going to say it, he's literally mentally ill. He is on social. He gets a crazy check every month. He's mentally ill. He does not work. He lives in Section 8 housing. He has this person. I'm not even going to say his whole name because I don't want to make him any more famous. he was part of the Occupy movement, which was, of course, the far left thing. And he was kicked out of that because he was socially inept. He behaved in a really creepy way towards women. He made people uncomfortable. He doesn't know how to get along to people. He's just rude. And he got kicked out of Occupy. He tried to kind of get into the music scene. That didn't work. He tried, literature. That didn't work. And he found something. He finally found something where he could go online and he could be it's a word that starts with an A, and I can't say it on the radio on your show, but he could be repugnant, and this would be rewarded. And so all of a sudden he's got these people applauding him for acting like that. He has maybe a dozen followers in Charlottesville. I guess if you include those people in the surrounding county. I mean, his last few events, when I look at people who are actually from here, I mean, it's a handful of people who are just kind of, and you look at them and they don't look quite exactly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
These are people who, would not mix with polite society for the most part, for various reasons. So it's literally, you could put them in a club wagon. Literally the alt-right in Charlottesville. All these other people came in from around the United States.
Well, we heard Jackson's point of view being on the ground. Now, Greg, what was it like being in a newsroom when all this was hitting? Because I know it's like being in a newsroom. It gets very, very furious very quickly when something like this breaks. Was the news organizations, were they equally shocked when the powder keg went?
I was actually down on the ground. I wasn't in the newsroom on Saturday. I think Jackson's.
Where were you, Greg?
Something currently. I was all over. I started out up on Market Street, and then I moved over into the parking lots behind the downtown mall between Water Street and South Street. There was a small group of Oath Keepers back there that were surrounded by a barricade of police and about 75 counter-protesters kind of heckling them. They were awaiting an ambulance. I was there for until a car pulled off real fast through the crowd and then hit a minivan and drove off. This was a member of this Oath Keeper group with Florida plates, so they at least were not from the area. I can't say I was checking people's ID for their address. I can't say that I recognized many of the people in that crowd of alt-right. So I would assume that most of them, and that's the story we're getting, is that.
I've been covering it for local media, also for the Charlottesville Weekly, and as well as for all the other outlets. I write for the local newspaper when it's something I think is real important, even if it pays crap. So I've been covering this for a long time. I recognize all the local alt-right guys, but I've been to so many of their events. And also for me, again, when you've lived in a place 25 years, when somebody's not, it is a large community, but it's a small community. And these people, I'd never seen them before, they were not from here. You act like that, you're not going to last long in Charlottesville.
Right.
Why do you think they came there? What is the draw to that community?
It's two things. It's the it's the statue, and it's the series of things that have happened in the statue where gradually there was more media attention over it. The statue has been in national news first. So you got to understand that the statue kind of launched into first statewide news and national news because the alt-right kind of leader here he got friendly with we had a gubernatorial candidate in the Republican primary who was basically a racist. And was thought of as kind of a fringe candidate. Greg, do you remember his name? What was that guy's name?
I don't remember his name, but I do.
Anyway,
remember they had a couple of press
conferences. So we had this candidate, and the alt-right here invited him, and he decided to make this statue. This candidate for governor was not from Charlottesville, but he decided to make this statue the center of his campaign. So he's going to say, I'm going to prevent them from taking down these symbols of the Confederacy, yada yada. And he kept coming to Charlottesville and have photo ops because he's running for governor. So then it would be all in state news, and then it becomes a big part of that campaign. And so there was more and more coverage. And so different alt-right groups found they could come here because it was in the news and hold some demonstration or some rally in front of that statue, and all of a sudden that would be news, and that became real easy for them. And then the local alt-right leader, again, of like a dozen people or less, he announced after the KKK came and did their rally, which had nothing to do with any local group here. We don't have a Klan here at all, as far as I know. They all came in from other states. But after that was such big news that the small group of locals, they saw an opportunity, and they said, we're going to have a Unite the Right rally. They call it Unite the Right March on Charlottesville. And they invited the leaders of all these big groups, and like, hey, we've got a place to call, and it's full of educated liberals. Great. We want to, they want to come piss those people off. And that's kind of the story in a nutshell of how this ended up happening here. There was this one guy that said, hey, come on down. I'll get a permit in the park. And he did. He didn't do anything else to run an event that size. He didn't have any porta pots. He didn't have water stations. He didn't have crowd control. He had no clue how to run an event like this, and we kind of saw what happened. But that's the story of how this ended up happening here.
One of the witnesses getting ready for the show that I know real well, and he happened to be there as well, he did tell me that Friday, marchers came and they descended on University of Virginia carrying torches and yelling slogans such as, quote unquote, now folks, white lives matter and blood and soil. Now that's some pretty inflammatory. That's very inflammatory speech, and that
also
definitely
yelling, "You will not replace us" was the other thing.
What on earth?
Yeah,
that's a harbinger of things to come. I mean, really, quite honestly. And then, of course, the clashing began, protesters again on Saturday, and clashing with counter-demonstrators. They clashed with them. Now, was there any gunfire that you can recall? Was that ever in play?
No, I didn't hear a single gunshot all day. That's the good news.
No.
That is great news.
No gunfire.
Hey, here's something both of you guys, I'd love to hear both your takes on this, because we're getting really mixed reports. What's your feeling on how the police handled this, and what was their involvement?
They didn't handle it. They didn't handle it. It was a complete. It was. I watched dozens of people get beaten in the streets, bloody. I saw women even being attacked, while police officers stood a few feet away and did nothing. And I'm working on a story right now.
It was pointed out to them. It was
pointed
out to them.
I interviewed a woman today. Yeah, I interviewed a woman today I have an article that's going to be coming out in the next week. I interviewed a woman who told me how she was randomly punched in the face by someone from the alt-right with some kind of white power T-shirt. Punched her in the face. She's bleeding. There's blood all over her face. She turned to a police officer. She said, was 15 feet away from her. There was a line of this. She said, please help me. She said only like one or two of them would even meet her gaze. They wouldn't respond. They didn't do anything. You have a bleeding woman pleading for help. There's 1,000 police officers. In a press conference on Friday, the chief of police bragging to me, oh, we've got 1,000 first responders here, and they didn't do anything. I don't know why they even showed up. These people do not deserve to wear a badge.
Yeah. And what else did he say at that press conference? He said, my concern is behavior and crimes being committed, not people walking on the streets of Charlottesville. That's what the chief of our police department said.
Yeah, but a woman being assaulted is clearly a crime. That's clearly a crime. And they did nothing to help. And this is just one person.
And here's the thing. Police officers aren't really like that. There's no way they wanted to do that. So, I mean, you don't become a police officer. That's not why. That's so. I'm not going to get in. There's more to this. I have a story coming out next week. That's not why. It actually wasn't that much fun. I mean, you can go in and arrest. You have a woman who's begging for help. You can help her. You can call EMTs. There's more to this. These police officers did not. It was not the firepower. I'll tell you that. I'm not gonna let my scoop out here. But there is more to it than that. They could have called EMTs. There's all kinds of things that they could have done. It was not a question of fire. Actually, I saw very little in the way of firepower in the crowd. It was the militia guys who weren't taking a side. They had guns, but I didn't see those guys hurting anyone. Actually, that was the only group I saw that didn't hurt anyone. Was the militia guys. Yeah. With the AR-15s, they were all impeccably behaved. I have to say,
as they were called racist, as they were called names and accused of being this and that, they were extremely reserved.
No,
and I talked to one of those guys, and he said, I don't believe in white power. I'm not racist. He gave me an explanation for why they were here. I don't think they're necessarily bad. Once I started to understand them, what they're doing is a weird thing. I wouldn't recommend it, but I don't think they're bad people.
Yeah. Well, by the numbers here. Oh, go ahead, Clarissa.
So I was just going to say they're typically people that are more anti-government control, which may or may not have anything to do with race. So a lot of the people that I've met too that are part of some sort of militia, a lot of them are not racist. It's interesting. It's strange because people associate that for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and that was a good lesson for me that you're right. They're not necessarily racist.
Yeah, and of course, there are some casualties involved. Of course, one was 32-year-old Heather Hayer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which I do believe I am. Higher. In hospital. She died in the hospital. Lieutenant Cullen and Trooper Pilot Bates, who were on board the crashed helicopter, they had died, and 35 people were injured at the rally, 19 confirmed by the hospital of Charlottesville. So there was a lot of carnage going on here. It wasn't just yelling and screaming. This really lends credence.
The injuries are more than that. So they said like 36 total people. But it's more than that. So I spoke with an EMT that I knew. He didn't want to go on the record, so I'm not going to use his name. But I spoke with an EMT. He said, no, look, those are the people that the city EMTs responded to. They said, EMTs weren't pre-positioned where they needed to be. What they should have done is all up and down the downtown mall, they should have like 2 on each end and 2 in the middle. The EMTs were went in ambulances, which of course couldn't move because so many streets were blocked off and there was so much traffic. I know people who needed to go to hospitals who ended up I have a friend, my brother-in-law, ended up getting his car and driving people around to where they needed to be. So that casualty count comes from the people that the city EMTs served, but there was almost no pre-planning. Like my friend EMT or a paramedic said, there was almost no plan, and it all went out the window as soon as they declared a state of emergency. They were completely unprepared. Hundreds of people were treated by kind of volunteer medics, people who had some kind of first aid training, who just had like a Red Cross, like an electrical tape on their backs, who were running around treating people. So a lot of people ended up in the hospital. People were treated in the field, and people were treated in the hospital and needed stitches and so forth that are not part of that count of 36. So that number is bogus.
Wow. That happens a lot, I noticed, though.
Yeah.
Jack,
like
what's that?
We know you're possibly running out of time here. Can you tell us at all about the event that you're attending right now?
The event right now, yes, I can tell. It was a big secret. So it's a candlelight vigil for the victims, in particular for Heather. And they started in what we call Nameless Field here at the University of Virginia, which the alt-right marched through on Friday night. And this was something where it was word of mouth. It was nothing posted on social media. It was all people texting each other. So most of the media actually kind of missed out on this, because if you're not local, you don't find out about it. So I've been at that, and I don't know how many people it is, but it's thousands. I mean, is it 2,000? Is it 5,000? I don't know, but I've never seen so many candles on one dark night. And trying to sing songs, and it's just funny because everybody they're singing "We Can Overcome," and nobody knows the second verse. And it's been very touching and a very Charlottesville thing. And it's the black communities out here, and the white community, and the UVA community, and all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's going on here. And I think it's close enough to being done. I have to go and do interview people coming out of it that I can say it was kept under wraps out of fear that if they had advance notice that white supremacists could show up and disrupt it. And so
colon cancer screening for people 50 and older at average risk.
Let me get rid of this audio that's playing in the background. I love websites, but they sometimes like to kick the audio in there. But that all being said, I know, Jason, you got to run. I know you do, but really, quite honestly, I hope that this is not just the beginning. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen us so divided as a country ever before. And really, hopefully this is the end for the story of Charlottesville, at least for now.
They'll be back. The alt-right sees this as a victory. So there's going to be more things like this. This is going to happen again in Charlottesville, and it's going to happen again in other cities. But I think the silver line is that as it happens, people are overwhelmingly going to reject it. So their little, 0.5% of the United States will feel more emboldened. But I think maybe it'll have the effect of unifying left, right, and center against them, and maybe we can put our country back together.
Hopefully more white people will get involved and stand up against this too. We all have to make a stand, even if you don't feel like you are somehow threatened by it. Everybody is.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to run a break, and I really want to thank Jason and Greg both for coming on the show. We're not done yet. Jackson, sorry. It was really last second. Our producer, Eric, said, hey, we got 2 people that we want to get on the air that are on the ground as we speak. And so we want to make room for you guys, definitely. And I'm so glad we did. You gave us a perspective that we never would have got because we're mainstream media. Whether we like it or not, Eric, we are. And we only get so much over the
So
AP.
am I, but I know my hometown.
Yeah, exactly. We only get so much via the AP, things like that. So it's great having Jackson on. Greg, we're going to talk to you some more as a veteran newsman, being there as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. We'll be right back after a word from these sponsors.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
She's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
What do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
better known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. Now, you know, it was great having Jackson on the show. He really gave us the insight. And now we have, we have a distinguished newsman with us now, Eric. And he has been throughout the entire show. And he's going to give us his insight on what he saw.
He was there.
He was live. He was live.
He was boots on the ground just as much as Jackson was. So, yeah, Greg, we'd love to hear you. You touched on it a bit, but maybe just kind of start at the beginning and walk us through your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I got there really early. I got there about 10:30. Actually, showed up on Market Street, and it was already hot. People already, things being thrown, and it was already a mess. By noon, the police were already showing up to shut it down. The crowd had really grown. You could see people around the entire block, where Emancipation Park and the Robert E. Lee statue were, all filling Market Street, and even down in the alleys toward the downtown mall. Tear gas canisters were being thrown. Mace was being sprayed. I kind of a little overspray from somebody else's argument and had to wipe that off. You're walking through clouds of tear gas because protesters, not the police, are popping these cans of tear gas and tossing them at each other. I think I counted 4 total.
Sure.
Police cars spattered with some sort of paint, and it's sitting kind of lonesome by itself. Nobody near it in the middle of the street. So that's at noon when it was scheduled to begin. It's already being shut down, declared an unlawful gathering.
Jeez.
I saw alt-right being violent. I saw anti-fascist or Black Lives Matter or our counter protesters that were there, the locals, but most of them associating themselves with one of these groups. It wasn't just locals that were there to like show support or show solidarity or show their support for love instead of hate type of thing. It was people that were there to fight or to oppose, to resist against, however you want to say it, these alt-right people, these people defending defending the Confederate memorial.
Well, really quick though now, Greg, a state of emergency was declared at 11:28 a.m. local time by the state.
They didn't come in with vehicles and shut it down until, I'm looking at my watch and I remember seeing 12 on the time.
So they
so like he comes in.
Yeah, I'm just curious of why. What a state of emergency means that they lock the city down more or less, and they bring in the necessary forces.
Yeah, that didn't happen ever.
Okay,
that didn't happen ever. The sad thing was, Jackson was right. This wasn't handled. Police were not responding to violent actions. They were not responding to crimes being committed. But more than that, later on, I mentioned that I moved from one place to another during the rally, and I mentioned that I moved back to Water Street. There was a whole contingent of these SWAT and riot officers escorting this group of Oath Keepers, this heavily armed group of protesters, to their vehicles. And of course they're being surrounded by civilians, so obviously that's a situation you want to keep people separate. You have one group that's heavily armed and another that's not. That could be a horrible thing. However, once that ambulance I mentioned earlier came and got the one member of the group, the rest were left to walk to their vehicles by themselves. The police, I literally looked up and they were gone. I had reached down to send a text in here to the newsroom, and all of a sudden, I see police, moving back toward the downtown mall, back toward northwest of 2nd Street and Market Street, the Market Street area. So then these vehicles started to pull out, and they were surrounded by counter-protesters, and as I mentioned before, people calling them racist and this and that, and get out of our town, and yet surrounding them and not letting them leave. But they, at one point, the third car in the line kind of gassed it a little bit in the middle of the crowd. And then the crowd lost it, of course, and shoes and water bottles and things were thrown, and people are hitting the car. And so they sped around the block, and on their way around the block, hit a minivan right within eyeshot of a UVA police officer.
Yeah, because my notes say it was 1:42 local time PM. A speeding car rammed into counter demonstrators.
1:40 was when the big crash happened.
Okay.
It was a different vehicle.
Okay, because the speeding car, Dodge Challenger, hit another sedan, which is turned and pushed a minivan in front of it, is what the notes are saying.
We're still earlier in the day now. So I still, after this point, have moved back to the downtown mall and then moved back to Water Street again to meet the group that was. It was a sea of people, guys. It was at least 1,000 people marching on Water Street peacefully. Nobody's hitting anything. They're chanting, "Whose streets? Our streets." Of course, traffic is absolutely stopped, but they're just walking around vehicles. Nobody's banging on vehicles and things that you might normally see in that type of situation. The crowd then turned on 4th Street, and that's when the fatal accident happened. The attack, if you will, that let's face it, it was every bit of evidence points to the suggestion that this was an attack and a completely deliberate act.
Yeah, and that would have been.
I have to distance myself like that because I still can't say, I still wasn't in his head, so I don't know what could or couldn't have gone wrong.
Totally respect that standpoint, Greg. I'd take the same standpoint because until everything settles, you don't know. But one thing that did shock me a little bit as an outsider looking in, of course, sitting way up here in the Northland, watching all this go down, is the utter lack of any real communication from Washington about the situation. Now, in the past, when there has been something similar, I do remember in the 90s, even when that riot went down, the president pretty much came on TV immediately to tell people cut it out, pretty much. Where was Trump? Where was he during that whole thing to tell that to these people, hey, stop. Otherwise, I will do what needs to be done to break this up.
Yeah, Trump clearly is a president who is going to rely on Twitter first, because he can type and read and delete and retype that 20 times before he settles on the third grade level that he finishes with.
Yeah.
And now look, I don't I didn't have a dog in that fight really. I couldn't support either side, but it doesn't.
Neither did we.
Call like you see it.
Yeah, neither did we.
Yeah, just because I didn't support Hillary doesn't mean I can support him either.
Yeah, neither Eric nor I had a dog in the fight. Just like you, we really can't. We got to remain objective about everything. But what I'm saying is the absolute inaction, and that can be talked about. The inaction that happened.
I will say though, what he said. And as a journalist, I have to somewhat appreciate what he said. I should say, as a journalist that doesn't work for Fox or CNN, I should clarify. But as a journalist, we're very careful how we word things if we don't know the full story. I can't say I disparage this hate and bigotry put on and violence put on by white supremacists if really I'm 150 miles away and aren't really completely sure that it's that it is white supremacists, or I'm only getting this third person report that it might be white supremacist groups. I also don't know if the counter protesters caused any violence, whether they did or didn't. I don't know that for sure yet because the reports have not been clear enough yet. And you're getting them from both sides because there were ultra-conservative correspondents there as well that were reporting. Much like you've got your progressives and your liberals that are going to report the story, leaning it a little more toward their progressive viewpoint. You had a few uber-conservative correspondents there as well, kind of tilting things in support of the alt-right narrative of
well, sure, that spin almost immediately happened amongst those media outlets. I mean, it was almost immediate. One way or another, they were spinning it either, it's about time people stand up was the right. I heard that a lot on that side, those talking heads. Progressive, it was, how horrible this was to trample over other people's rights and, not be progressive and understand and be, and understand what the others are feeling. So really, it's hard to be in the middle, but we are in the middle. I mean, quite honestly, sitting here watching this all go down, one thing I can say as a journalist, much like you, the loss of life, no matter what, any circumstances, is a horrible circumstance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the tragedy here. It's human nature to act like a fool when you're emotionally involved in something. Some people have a higher degree of control over those emotions than others, but the fact is we are victim to our emotions from time to time. This is a situation where what you saw and what you're seeing in the news are the people that were the most emotionally charged that day. You're not seeing reports of the people that were there holding signs that just said, love or peace or the people that were there to show, like I said before, solidarity for inclusion.
Yeah.
But not necessarily to challenge what are First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
For these people to speak their mind, whether we agree with it or not.
I don't know how old you are, and I'm almost 43. I'll be 43 next Friday. But my mother, her and I were watching this all unfold, and I looked at her, and she lived through all the 60s turmoil. In fact, she was a protester during the 60s. And I asked her, hey, Mom, what do you think of all this? Because she was a journalist for her college at that time. And she turned and she said to me, this is not anything like it was in the 60s. We were unified against a war that we did not agree with. We are unified for civil rights. This is a completely different animal, and this is a completely more violent animal.
Absolutely. You have a number of groups that none of which necessarily agree with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the world war of civil rights groups and anti-civil rights groups, I guess. But you had all these alt-right and white supremacist groups all kind of banded together on one side, and then all of these anti-fascist and Black Lives Matter was there, and other quote anti-hate groups. Charlottesville has a group called Standing Up for Racial Justice or Showing Up for Racial Justice, call themselves Surge. But they, this is the same group that showed up while the organizer of the rally, Jason Kessler, was on the downtown mall having dinner before the rally ever happened. And this group showed up to harass him and tell him to get out of town,
Yeah.
But they're an anti-hate group.
Well, one thing I noticed, and I'll let someone else, I know lots of questions, but one thing I did notice about watching the footage from Charlottesville, if you were to make that in a black and white, and I'm speaking pretty much exclusively to the neo-Nazis, it would look just like 1940s Germany, 1930s, 40s Germany. It really would. I mean, if you were to take it in black and white, yes. It was eerie.
And I will say it wasn't just black versus white. You did have a lot of angry white people. In fact, most of the pictures and footage of fights that I'm seeing now, after the fact, are white people fighting white people.
Yeah.
I'm actually seeing very, very few, and looking back. Come to think of it type of thing, hindsight, and maybe I'm being tainted now by the footage that I'm seeing. But yeah, most of what I'm seeing even now is more white guys on white guys. And part of that is, maybe we attribute that to the so-called white guilt that, maybe it's the white guy in the group that feels he needs to take up for the black guy against the other white guy to prove that he's not like him,
Yeah.
So, Greg, what's the tenor of the town since then? This is back on Saturday. Can you encapsulate what's happened thus far, and where do you see it going? It was pretty unequivocal from Jackson, but we'd love to hear what you think.
Well, so yesterday a man showed up in Emancipation Park at the Robert E. Lee statue dressed in a Confederate Army uniform, and he stood at attention facing the statue. Didn't say anything, didn't have a sign. He was carrying a rifle on his shoulder, but stood there quietly at attention facing the statue, and was called a racist, a murderer, told that Heather Heyer's blood was on his hands, get out of town, the whole nine. Police had to be called out to escort the man out because there were so many people there. Let's call it heckling, but bullying the guy.
Yeah.
Again, I can't say that I agree or disagree with what he was saying. When it comes to Jason Kessler, I still don't really know what the point was of his rally.
I have yet to find it. Greg, you're not the only one. I was trying to find that desperately before showtime, what his point was. I cannot find one.
I got to tell you, it almost just feels like it was just to show that people will react violently to them, even if they don't do anything.
Do you think it was more like a flexing the muscle kind of thing? Yeah, I mean, like you're saying,
Some possibly, but Jason Kessler strikes me as the type of guy that likes to get other people riled up and then watch them get in trouble.
Exactly.
He's extremely litigious. He's constantly suing people for and charging them for assault, for touching him or putting a finger in his chest while they're having an argument type of thing. but then he's the same guy that turned around and punched a guy in the face that called him a name when he was trying to get a petition filled out.
Yeah.
Once. So it's, he definitely strikes me as the type of guy that would chum the waters and then just see how many in our black community here locally he could get arrested and charged with.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just to let the audience know, Jason Kessler, I do believe, is part of the Southern Poverty Law Center, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct?
He simply claims to be alt-right. He's a blogger. I got to tell you, I don't follow his blog, and I suppose I could have a better understanding, and maybe that's why people seem to hate him so much.
Yeah.
It's one of those. I read it once and was kind of turned off by the rhetoric that was somewhat. I don't know if it was white supremacist or just self-serving. It really just seemed more.
It sounds confusing, Greg.
Woe is me type of thing.
It sounds extremely confusing.
Say that again?
It sounds extremely confusing, and I'm an outsider looking in, trying to make everything, all the puzzle pieces fit. But, it just sounds extremely confusing why any of this even happened, period.
It's somebody was bored.
You know what I mean?
Ultimately, somebody was bored. We have a vice mayor that decided he wanted to make a name for himself, and so he started this whole movement to remove the statue. There was a petition started by a high school student, but ultimately Vice Mayor Wes Bellamy really took it under his wing. And so from there, Jason Kessler really kind of latched onto it. And so then Kessler brought forth a lot of really racist things that Bellamy had said on Twitter, tried to have him removed from office. And then that's been the series of events in Charlottesville was he failed at getting Bellamy removed from office. Bellamy felt vindicated and kind of doubled down, and they immediately kind of voted to remove the statue. And
because something tells me, Sir Greg, without interrupting you at all, but something tells me this is much bigger than a statue. Yeah, I mean, so I'm glad you're filling that in, because I was thinking, really, over a statue? I mean, I get it. I get it. I kind of sort of get it. But then again, sir, I am from the North, a total different mindset on how things ended, all right? I'm not even going to lie here. I am from the North, born and bred. I'm a Yankee. So I look at it, I don't see why a statue, that icon of Confederate general that is clearly a symbol of prejudice and oppression of a whole class or a whole race of people, would be a big deal. But evidently it is bigger than I realized. Deal.
Hey, Clarissa.
It is.
Yes.
Before we run out of time, I'd love to hear questions or thoughts, perhaps from a but not only psychological point of view. Love to get your input here as we are nearing the end.
I'm glad that I was actually, I lived in Texas for a while, and I practiced. That's where I first started practicing. And I didn't really understand that mindset the way I do now. But now that I work in the prison system out here, like I was saying, it is very similar to the gang structure. So gangs are usually about criminal activity, but they have sort of a paramilitary structure. White supremacists typically do too. And the thing that is interesting about that is that most of these people that consider joining feel very disenfranchised, is the only word I can think of. They feel disenfranchised by their community, and that is typically how gang members feel as well. They feel like they don't have anybody. There's no structure. There's no real ideology to latch onto, and they want to feel accepted, and not just accepted, they want to feel powerful because they feel very disempowered. They feel like they have no personal power on their own. So they latch onto, and gangs are the exact same way. They come from a crime infested community where they feel they have no power to protect themselves or others. And white supremacy is similar. They have no real reason to feel that way. That being said, but that is how they feel. They feel very threatened. So I feel like at the core of joining a gang or a white supremacist group or any ideological group, a lot of that is motivated by fear. It's fear. And fear is a very motivating force. And it's fear that is united with numbers under an ideology that makes them feel powerful, makes them feel like they can control their own destiny. They're looking for acceptance, but they're finding it through hate.
I also think that there may be an aspect where it's looking for somebody to blame, being unhappy with oneself or one's whatever, one aspect of one's life, and then needing somebody to blame, and that manifests in all these different ways. We blame minorities, or we blame the Crips if I'm a Blood. We blame
blame your boss.
We blame the North if we're the South.
Exactly
we blame
right.
North Korea.
But
we
wasn't
blame Trump? We blame Obama.
But Greg, wasn't the entire 2016 election all about blame?
Isn't every election?
Every election.
I mean, no, but really, it seemed to be supercharged this go around.
I think every election is. I disagree.
I think it takes a real. I think it takes an inherent personality flaw to want to be in a position to create laws by which other people have to live.
Yeah.
I think to want to be in a position like that takes a certain level of sociopathic tendencies, but also a little bit of a superiority complex. Now, look, we all think that we have the right moral compass, but to feel that you need to push your moral compass on others takes a certain type of person, and therefore I think because of that inherent flaw in the personality that I think is required to want to go there, we're not going to get anybody worth their salt as long as the system is as it is. As long as long as we're buying these offices, let's face it.
There's a narcissism there that has to be there. Yeah,
absolutely.
But
and same with these alt-right groups, the leaders there. You were talking about Kessler. You were saying like maybe sort of personal gratification had something to do with it, and I think it has everything to do with it. It's probably not about the ideology at all for someone like him.
Yeah, if I can make these people look worse, I make myself look better. Or if I can convince people that these people are to blame for these problems, then it's not my fault. Then I don't have to hold myself accountable.
Yeah, exactly. Perfectly said, Greg. Perfectly said. But what I fear for is the division in our, no matter who's up all here, but the division in this country that seems to be so deep and so prevalent that, there's no happy medium anymore. It's either extreme left or extreme right lately. That the voice of reason just seems to have maybe a little bit gone on the wayside. And that, to me, is the scariest part.
The voice of reason has turned into the new silent majority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And they feel like they don't have an outlet. But I would think, say that what is interesting about social media, like all this stuff is now coming out into the open, but I would think like, okay, I'm not from a large, I'm not from a minority group in what people think is the classical sense, but I am a woman, which has classically been sort of a minority or a group in terms of work. And I work in a man's prison in a man's system. And honestly, I'm relieved in some ways that things are blowing up, not because there's violence. I hate that, but because all of these opinions that people have had for generations are finally coming out into the open. It's not that the hate is new. It's that other people are learning about it.
And let's start talking. Let's actually start talking honestly about how we feel. If you don't like someone for a certain physical characteristic about them, let's discuss why. Why not?
Exactly.
Hey, I really am uncomfortable with this fact about you. Can we talk about how maybe I could fix that?
Something. I mean, there has to be a better way than what we're doing now. There just has to be. I mean, I can't imagine us keep this pace up for much longer.
But the dialogue is opening up, and that part I'm actually grateful for, because fighting the silence, the stony silence, especially when I first started working in a man's prison, a man's environment, when I first started doing it in 2005, 2006, nobody would talk about it. Now, at least I know who my enemies are because they talk about it.
Very true.
Good.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. It's really flown by. Greg, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about what's going on. And of course, Jackson at the top. I mean, really, quite honestly, it gave us a better picture of what's going on down there, and really gave us a better picture of what's going on in our country. And everybody, thank you again for listening, and take care of each other, love each other, and better yet, understand each other. Until tomorrow night, take care.
Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.